This podcast is brought to you by People's Food Co-op, a community-owned grocery store in downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin and Rochester, Minnesota, that promotes local farmers and producers through an emphasis on fresh, healthy, sustainable food. Anyone can shop. Everyone is welcome. For more information, visit them online at pfc.coop. This podcast is also brought to you by Trempealeau County Tourism. Whether your idea of fun is bicycling, hiking, or canoeing, afterwards head into the heart of one of their welcoming communities to experience historic architecture, independent shops, and locally owned dining establishments. Visit Trempealeau County Tourism online. The Great River Shakespeare Festival is running now through July 31st, featuring Twelfth Night, and the African Company presents Richard III and more at Minnesota's premier Shakespeare Festival in Winona, Minnesota. Buy tickets online at grsf.org. Great River, great drama. We talked with Greg Tooke of Bloody Mary Concerts, my Big Fat Bloody Mary podcast, and members of the local band Big Liquor. We discussed how he got started opening his home to traveling musicians via house concerts and what people can expect when they attend the show. We also delve into his Bloody Mary-focused podcast, Band, and where people can find out more. You can find more conversations, food reviews, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
My name is Greg Tooke. I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And growing up as a kid, I listened to my parents' music. And a lot of that was Johnny Cash and Ernest Tubb and Merle Haggard and that sort of thing. That's kind of my first exposure to music.
Talking with you about the Bloody Mary concerts, also your podcast. Was the podcast something that started first, the popularity of indie music and in some ways bands traveling independently? Was it just a natural progression to offer concerts at your house?
Well, I think it was. It first came about, I was at a Bobby Bear Jr. show down at the High Noon Saloon in Madison, and he's a real road warrior. And he got done with the show and he was tearing down his own equipment, and I struck up a conversation, and I knew he was a guy that did house concerts. So I asked him if he'd be interested in doing one. I never had. And he agreed to it. We set it up. So he was my first one. And he really helped me kind of get it started. He walked into the room, he looked around and he said, "You could do 50 people here." Sure enough, 50 is the absolute sweet spot. If I did 53, somebody'd have a bad seat. But I don't sell bad seats. So that's how it started. And the term indie music kind of makes me grin a little bit. One of the guys that's played here a couple times, Micah Schnabel from Tooke Garage, defines indie music as any band that's just not making much money.
I guess I wasn't necessarily using indie as a genre of music, but more of like independent. It seems to be ever so more common with, a lot of bands having their own audience. There's lots of different people out there that like different venues of tunes or arts and that sort of thing. So it seems like people can kind of go down and find their own fans with it, especially like stuff like this, where they can find 50 really sought after people looking to, listen to their music in a living room or outdoors behind someone's house.
Yeah. And I think it's valuable to the artists too, because they form a much tighter relationship with their listeners. When they're actually in the same room, they get to meet them and talk with them. Those people come away from a show like that with I think a little tighter bond with the artist, and they're going to probably follow them more on social media and be more engaged. So it's kind of a win-win. It's an intimate setting for the listener and the artist. Everyone there is there to listen. They're not like at a bar where people are maybe paying attention. I mean, they get a real intent listening audience.
You've touched on a few of those things, sort of the intimate component, being able to talk with the musicians. To some, that might just be a little bit maybe uncomfortable, or I guess maybe once you get there, of course, you're watching a show just like anything else. What can people expect for those first time sort of attendees to one of your concerts?
Well, they can expect the Bloody Mary, that's for sure. That's kind of, I have a lot of different endeavors. I have the podcast. I've got a blog. I do reviews and I do these concerts. And the Bloody Mary is kind of at the center of a lot of it. So I always make up a big batch of bloodies, and it's a nice icebreaker. We mill around before the show. People can socialize a little bit and relax. Pearl Street Brewery is a sponsor, so they supply a few cases of beer, and people are welcome to bring their own beverages too. But what they're going to get is a national or an international touring artist that they probably aren't going to see in the area otherwise. I've been extremely lucky getting some really amazing artists. I started out kind of stalking them. I'd watch their schedules and see where they're going to be. And if they had a little hole between Chicago and Minneapolis, I'd reach out to them. It's gotten to a point now where they're actually reaching out to me, largely because I provide a really good environment for them. I have a green rooms where they can get away from everybody. I cook them a meal. I let them stay here. So the word's kind of gotten out, and I end up having a lot of artists reach out to me.
I'm sure you're kind of in the planning stages for this next summer with COVID and everything. People couldn't get together, but I'm sure you're ready to kick it off in some fashion. Do you have some shows booked for this year?
Yeah, boy, COVID's been an interesting challenge. We actually built an outdoor stage here a couple of years ago, just in time. And I did do a couple of outdoor shows, just for safety, and health reasons. And that worked out pretty well. So I have that as an option. But yes, I am in the process of booking some shows. I've got, July 10th, Max Cabello Jr. He's a guy out of Healdsburg, California, just an amazing blues guitar player. And a buddy of his is a trained chef, and he's coming along. So he's going to do like a big jambalaya or some barbecue. We've done this before. I'll have a food truck or something, but it'll be like a Sunday brunch and blues and bloodies. That should be a really fun one. I'm also talking with Willie Wisely. Sonny Sweeney, John Snodgrass of Drag the River. Those dates aren't set yet, but if you go to bloodymaryconcerts.com, I'll keep that updated.
We kind of mentioned the podcast a little bit, but I've listened to your podcast a handful of times. Basically, you just discuss Bloody Marys, right? How to make them, you have special guests. How did that project start?
Yeah, we used to do them as a video, and then it moved into like a 4-person kind of drive time radio format, which was a lot of fun. But boy, I'm sure to edit out all the 4 different tracks, everybody had their own microphone, and it got just a little unwieldy. These days, I have one guest sit with me. We share a microphone. We're kind of up close and personal. I try to, we review products a lot of times, Bloody Mary mixes, and then I try to put something entertaining at the end. And it might be my friend Lynn Miller, who is a lovely 80-something-year-old woman who loves to sing karaoke. We might put a song of hers at the end, or if we're having a house concert, I'll ask permission and record a song. Sunny War actually sat down in her own studio and recorded a song specifically for the podcast. It is super high quality and amazing if people want to go back and look for that. But, and then, I have a band, Big Liquor. We play a lot of the artists I talked about earlier, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, and that sort of thing. And I've dropped in a song from one of our practices too. So I try to mix it up a little bit. We do the reviews, and then I throw something a little entertaining at the end. They're usually about 20, 30 minutes long.
I definitely recognize that band name, and I believe I've seen you a handful of times down at Bodega. Where did that band come from as well? I mean, it sounds like it kind of neatly all fits together.
It kind of does. Things are all starting to converge. A buddy of mine and I were sitting out back on my porch, which we often do, and we're just picking out some old country songs. And he said, we should maybe start a band, a cover band, just doing old country songs. And I had played in a band before, but I'd never started one. It's been quite the odyssey. We've gotten to, we're a 5-piece band, and I have the PA, which is nice because I can use that for the house concerts. I can have that all set up when they get here. We play around the area. We're going to be at Moon Tunes here in mid-July. We'll be playing there, and we've got another gig up at the Alpine. But it's really been a lot of fun.
You got the concerts, you got the band, you got the podcast. What's the best avenue for people to go to follow along?
Honestly, if you just went on to Google and put in My Big Fat Bloody Mary, all of that stuff would probably pop up. But if you're specifically interested in the house concerts, BloodyMaryConcerts.com is that website. And Big Liquor, it's just Big Liquor Band. And the podcast is My Big Fat Bloody Mary Podcast.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.